Hi everybody, welcome to a new tutorial from Sound for More. It's Leo speaking. Today I have the pleasure to demonstrate Crystalline, a reverb from Baby Audio. Before I continue, I would like to remind my viewers to subscribe as it helps with growing the channel. Thank you very much. As you can see, we are inside the AUM. I have 5 audio channels. In each audio channel, as you can see, I have a different type of audio source, and each audio channel is connected as an output to mix bus A, as you can see here at the bottom, and then the 5th channel as an audio source mix bus A. Then we have an insert effects, which at the moment is not enabled, where we have Crystalline, and of course we have the normal output, which in this case is going to my headphones for recording for the purpose of the tutorial. So I can connect from one audio source to the next, so you can hear the sound of each one. So this is the grand piano from Pablo Lopez. Next is iSEM from Arturia, one of the many presets, of course. Digistix from 4-Pocket Audio, and it's nice to have a drum machine to actually see how reverb performs with drum sound. And the last one is Pipa, a vocal synthesizer from Klevgrand. Okay, perfect. Let's reconnect to the grand piano. So, as I mentioned, in the 5th audio channel, we have Crystalline, and now let's enable it. So let's maximize it or open it up, okay, of course. Now, let's disable the high here, which stands for help on and off, of course, depending on what you prefer. It's quite useful because when you have it on, it shows you for different controls what is really happening. So that is really nice. It shows you a help here, down here at the bottom in the middle. Okay, so let's hear. This is the default preset, of course, so you can start to hear what the reverb sounds like. But as you can see on the screen, there are so many options which I'm going to go through in a moment now. And you can see the UI, how much attention Baby Audio has put in terms of the UI. Is really, really nice, and it is responsive. It's not just one single button. You can actually move up and down, and you can see the shape of the different elements on the UI changing as well, which is really, really nice. Up here on the top left, and where you see this black button, you see it says color. Click on it and it will change the color of the insert effect. It's really nice. The black is really nice, I must admit, particularly if you're doing a lot of composition late at night in your studio. But for now, I'll leave it actually on white. You have here a list of presets. Click on where it says default presets. It opens up this screen where on the left hand side you have different categories. Then on the right hand side you have the different presets you can choose. You can move left and right, of course, with the arrow, and you can press this arrow pointing up to save a preset. Okay, and here we mentioned already help on and off. The next one is echo mode on and off, and when it is on, it will actually reduce the resolution, which is here. At the moment it is on pristine, but you can actually change it. Let me show you. If I click on echo mode, you can see that it has changed here, and it's gone lower as a resolution, which means you will hear some artifacts, but it helps, for example, when you have a CPU which has not the performance that you need, or depending on the complexity, I suppose, of what you are doing. And so let's remove that. So we turn that off. So it has moved actually to pristine as type of resolution. Then you can also make these the default. It says make default. You have a button there. And then you have also a button which says load default, which is really handy to load back your default sound. Okay, so there are so many options, as you can see. This is why I have chosen to actually load different type of audio sources, so I can show you better switching between one and the other what it sounds like, and in terms of changing a particular parameter, which I will be explaining. So, starting here, and let me turn off the help now, like so. Starting here, we have dry and wet effect. So if I play the grand piano at the moment, you hear only the reverb. Of course, I can move it right to the left. and you have the signal coming out just dry with no reverb applied. Double click on it to go back to the default, which in this case is 50. So 50% dry and 50% wet as an effect. What is really nice, here you have on the left hand side a button which stands for freeze, and you can freeze that reverb. Let me show you. So you can hear the reverb there, which is sustained, so it's been frozen, which is really nice, particularly if you want to do something live as well. And you can see always a representation up here in the middle, a 3D representation of the waveforms. It's really, really nice. Next, let me actually switch now. This is where it becomes really interesting, to Pipa as a vocal synth. Now you can play the reverb in reverse. So let's try. Really, really nice. So let's disable that. Now let's move to something, for example, like iSEM. And let's try this ducker, which will duck the reverb based on the input signal, i.e. when it's being played. And you hear it even better if you put the wet maximum. So you can hear is ducking that reverb signal. Okay, and let's set this down to 0 and the dry and wet to the default one. Next, I'm going to show you how you can change the decay, the end or release, and also the start of the reverb. And you can have both of them synchronized. So in this example, the start is synchronized, which means if I move it, it's synchronized to the host, it goes in subdivision. But you can also have it not synchronized, in which case it goes by milliseconds. And the same is here for the decay or the end of the reverb. So let's try with something like no iSEM but Digistix. So let's increase the end. So you can hear that the decay or the release is much longer for that reverb. And of course, you can have it right in the middle, which is what we have by default. Or you might decide to have it very low as well. So you can hear how it truncates straight away the reverbs and all the reflection. Now, you can also decide that the reverb come in later, changing the start. I have put the end right in the middle. It's like a delay, effectively. You have a delay for the reverb coming in. Now, what is interesting in terms of using start and end is that you can combine them with setting for the reflection, which you have up here on the left-hand side. And the first one is the size, effectively the size, in terms of how large the reflection will spun. So it determines the size of effectively your room. That's what you have as a room size in other reverbs. And you can go from spacey. Oops, let's actually change the to, why not, the grand piano. Actually, no, let's go to iSEM. Let's move down to a very tiny one. Space again. A lot also depends on the width of the reflection, but also the decay. So let me show you a really large or spacey size in terms of reflection, but a very tiny decay. Really interesting. Let me show you a very tiny type of reflection, but very large end of decay. So it's almost opening up straight away, but then but the room is actually quite the space in terms of reflection. The space that the reflection can use is actually quite small. Okay, so it's interesting to combine the two because you can do different things, right? In some, not all the reverbs will have all the flexibility you have inside the Crystalline, or you might have to actually use more than one plugin to obtain the same effect. Next, you have the sparkle and also the width. And again, if you don't remember what they do, just enable that. The sparkle, for example, emphasizes frequency, as it says there, in the reverb reflection, and the wave will change from mono to wide, the reverb, right? So let's see what it sounds like. Let's skip to iSEM as well. Let's move it down to very little emphasis on a high frequency. Let's increase this. You should be able to hear it right at the end on the tail, that it is changing. As I said, it depends on the width here. You can move from mono to stereo. Okay, so let's decrease these. So you click and hold and move up and down to change the value. Now let's change the sparkle. Let's change the width. Let's increase the end as well. Oh, actually, let's increase the size as well. That makes a big difference. So, sparkle, very, very small. Very high. You should hear the difference. And of course, we can move from mono and stereo in terms of reflection. You should hear straight away the difference in terms of width. Again, sparkle. You can hear it's not as bright as when the sparkle is a max. Okay, so let's double click on these two to go back to the default setting. Okay, next we have depth, which is really interesting. And you can set the resolution for depth. At the moment it is pristine, maximum resolution, but of course it will be more intensive in terms of CPU. Let's go down to the very low basic. Yes, it's not that clear as it could be when it is at a lower resolution. But again, that helps with, for example, if you have an older device. Next, we have modulation, which is really nice. So let's listen. Modulation on your reverb. Really nice. Then you have shimmer effect here, and you click and hold, move up, and you see different value which are changing. First it goes on, right, and it will say twice the size or the length, but after 4 kilohertz, or if we go up, the same after or above 8 kilohertz, and so on and so forth. For sure, you have different settings. So you can see how it changes when you actually change the frequency where the shimmer will be operating at. Okay, let's turn these off, but it's really nice to actually have a shimmer there already inside the reverb effect. Next here we have clean up. So the first one is dumping. So effectively here you have a high pass filter. And if you click and hold on the right hand side, you have a low pass filter, so it's really nice. That helps you to clear a little bit which frequency you want to leave. Let's double click to leave as default. Next, you can actually remove, it's called sides as a parameter, but you can remove where your mono, where your stereo is applied as effects on your reverb. Of course, you change the threshold in terms of frequency, right? Next, you have actually a gate, and for this one, why not? Let's actually change to Pipa. And this is a gate. First of all, you have a threshold, and then you have release. How long will the gate will last for in millisecond. See, a very different set of releases. You can hear the release is very short here, up here, 1 millisecond. But it really depends on the threshold in terms, okay? Okay, finally you have shape. This allows you actually to change effectively the tone of your reverb. It's quite interesting, so let's try. So it changes from being a bit brighter to a darker actually type of sound. So let's, for example, go back to Digistix, see how it sounds with the drum sound. You can hear it better actually with a kick drum in terms of how it is actually changing that tone. Next you have the moving, so let's set it up a maximum on the top. And let's select symbol like so. It's moving high frequency in the reverb. Let's change this to the other side. There is no moving now. It's moving. And again, it really depends on the type of sound that you have. Let's go back to iSEM. Okay, next we have Transients, and these, as the help says, it helps to actually emphasize the transient or sustain part of the signal, right? So at the moment it is on the sustain part. You can hear it on the sustain part, but you can move it the other side. It will operate on the transient part of the sound in terms of applying that reverb. Typically, you hear it on the sustain side, but again, there might be cases where you might want to change that. Of course, there are some presets which are already available, so just play with some of them. So this one, snare big, so let's change the type of sound to actually Digistix. Let's change into another one. So, as you can see, you have so many that you can choose from. Let's hear it now, for example, with the piano. Let's choose these chamber synced. Okay, perfect. Let's play a little bit more with Pipa as well, because it's nice to hear it on a vocal synth. It's nice. Let's increase the end ear, the size perhaps. So you can see you have some DACA here on. But you also have Shimmer here on. You also have Modulation on as well. Let's increase the width. The sparkle as well. Okay, let's change the high pass filter. And also the low pass filter. And let's move a little bit more frequency. And let's freeze the signal. So really, really nice, a fantastic plugin, UV-free compatible, of course. So what can I say? It's my favorite reverb. There is a lot straight away out of the box. So really, really nicely well done. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and demonstration. And as always, see you next time. Bye.